Today is June 29, 2015. I wanted to talk about this Greece situation for a few minutes. A little background. From 2010 to about 2013, I followed the situation in the EU very closely. And during that time, we were waiting for the EU to completely melt down. We were waiting for the economy to completely crash. We were waiting for the countries to pull out and go back to their old currencies. And in 2013, I covered my first big story on YouTube, which happened to be the Cyprus bail-ins. And after that happened, things kind of calmed down in the EU, and we really haven't seen much since. And a lot of the experts at the time were saying that Greece and the EU more or less bought themselves a couple of years after the last big intervention that we saw. And it's a couple of years now. And Greece is back in the news. They're about to melt down again for the nth time. And look at these headlines. Greek banks and stock exchange in shutdown. Cash withdrawals and hoarding as default looms over Greece. And we see in this story that if you live in Greece, the banks are closed and you're only allowed 60 euros a day withdrawal in the ATM. And could you imagine what it would be like to live in a society where this was happening and you weren't allowed to protect yourself with a gun in your own home? Because if this goes on for weeks and people start running out of money, or the banks completely shut down and the economy completely stops, you will have massive civil unrest. And that's what I wanted to talk about with this video. Everything that we are seeing happen in the EU right now will come to America. We are going to see bail-ins, and I want to explain to you what that really means. Now, in Cyprus, it's been a long time, so I don't remember the exact figures, but I believe they lost like half their money, at least the richest people did. I think the people that were on the lower income lost around 10 to 20%, but it seemed like it was all over the place for everyone. I think there were people that lost 80%. There really wasn't a set standard, but a lot of people lost everything as a result of the Cyprus bail-in. I was listening to a radio program earlier. They were talking about this, and they said they were speculating how much money is out there, US dollars, that are physically printed versus those that are digitized in the system. And they said that it's probably upwards of 100 to 1. It's probably way higher than that. But for simplicity, let's say it's 100 to 1. What that means is if the banks in America shut down because of an economic crisis and the derivatives finally come due and we are forced to pay for them, what that means, if the number is actually 100 to 1, it means that when you get a haircut and they bail in your account, that means the banks are going to steal 99% of what's in your account. So when the banks close down, if you had $100 in the bank, you will be reimbursed $1. That's what they meant when they said 100 to 1. There is 100 times more US dollars that are in cyberspace than are physically printed, and it's the dollars that are in cyberspace that are screwing the whole system up. Now, this is not a coincidence. Remember what I said earlier, that we speculated that EU had about 2 years before the next big crisis was going to occur because of the last intervention, and it's here now. America has been on the brink of meltdown economically for over 5 years now. And for those of us who followed this closely for a long time, we were not supposed to make it past 2013, but here we are. So it's really only a matter of time before something happens. And one of the things that I've learned through all of this is the powers that be and the manipulators, they are able to prop up the system much longer than you could ever anticipate. So this could go on for 10 more years. I'm not saying that it's inevitable that we're going to see a Greek collapse or a U.S. collapse of the economy, but what I am saying is many experts said that we had about 3 years back in 2010, and we're almost 6 years past that original prediction date. So I'm just trying to point out that we're in a danger zone, but because of the central banks, they could push this on much longer. And I think the reason why they have let this go on for as long as they have is because we have had victories. We have stopped many of their programs, or at least have slowed them down. But what I think we are seeing now is we are seeing all the tyranny we're seeing, Obamacare, the mandatory vaccinations, the TPP, the gun grabs that they're trying to do, everything that they're trying to do right now. I think they're going for broke, and Greece might not make it out of this week. And I guarantee you that whatever you see happen out of Greece will be a precursor for America. Watch what their government does. Our government will do the exact same thing. They have 60 euro withdrawals right now. I bet we have something like that in the future if this ever happens. They're going to do bail-ins. Our government will do bail-ins. And then lastly, there will be social unrest in Greece, and believe me, there will be social unrest in America. So if we are right around the corner from all of this happening, just remember that Jade Helm is rapidly approaching, and that might be why they've put Jade Helm in place. And I'm just going to say one thing about Jade Helm. There was a radio program that I heard on YouTube, and this guy was saying that some soldier who went AWOL was telling us that Jade Helm was going to go live in Texas on a certain date, and they were going to have an EMP. And I heard this show the day before the date they were talking about, and I basically said, this isn't going to happen, and I turned it off. And then, of course, nothing happened. But what they said that I found to be the most interesting was that Jade Helm is not meant to be an offensive attack on the American people. What I think it is, it's a continuity of government. They're putting the troops in place so that if the social unrest breaks out as a result of an economic meltdown, the troops will already be there to keep society in line. That is what makes the most sense to me right now, especially considering what we are seeing in Greece. Ladies and gentlemen, what's going on over in Greece is a really big deal. If these banks are shut down for another couple of days, there will be people in the street who will start to starve to death. And if people start starving in the streets, that will cause social unrest. So I just want to make sure everyone realizes that this is what's going on. Greece has shut down the banks. The economy is about to melt down. You're only allowed 60 euros a day. The government is waiting for social unrest. Meanwhile, America has gone way longer than expected economically, and we have Jade Helm starting in a couple of weeks. So you make up your own mind as to what all this means, but this is one of those stories that if you want to see what's going to happen here in the future, just watch how this story plays out. And remember, they might bail out Greece again like they always do, because if they're not ready to clamp down on us, then they will bail out Greece. And that's how you know how close we are to the end really is based on if they allow Greece to pull out of the EU.